Well, hi guys, hopefully this finds you very well. My name's Paul, this is Plan Zed. Welcome to this little video where today we're going to be diving into Boss GT-1000. We've got ToneX in tow. The question has been, what do I do if I've got two ToneX and I want to run stereo wet dry? So what I've done is I've taken a patch. I can't afford two notes at ToneX at the moment. So what I've done is we're going to use our imagination for a little minute, but we're going to cover all the settings you're going to need. So you'll have set up your input, you'll have got your level nice and good, and you'll have set your output to line level and turned all the microphones off, put your direct level through on your back here on your cabinets. As you come out the output, remember to turn this this mic level down and the direct mix up. Just make sure you get no mic funniness happening there. And then we come in. The first thing I'm doing is I've got a little noise suppression here, set to 57 at the moment, release on 0. We're set to input. Then we've got a compressor at the front of the chain. We've got a couple of drives, and then we hit a divide. Now, if you've got a ToneX, or if you're using two of them, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can set patches up in different ways, obviously. I would set yourself up a template like this and then do other versions of this template. It's a lot easier to work like that. So in my first divide here, what we've got is we've got the ToneX in channel B, because the guy who's asked for this video is using a ToneX with a Deluxe model. Now, I'm not surfing the internet for tones, I'm just using what comes in the box. So I found one of the Deluxes in the box, and I've just dialed it in. We're on the neck pickup of my Tele, and actually, I'm lying to you, we're on the right channel, so I got myself confused. I swapped it last minute. Now in the other channel, it's very different sounding, because rather than a ToneX, I've got a Boss GT-1000 Diamond amp as my Vox. And then we're going into two notes cab M. So there's one channel. There's no lows in a Vox really. I'm using a Vox cab sim, dynamic IR. Sounds much louder, more up front, because it's all mids and a very compressed amp, really, a Vox. Once you get to a certain level with a Vox, it's quite compressed. Now the Deluxe sounds quieter, but it's all lows and highs, not many mids. And what I've done is I've put two different EQ sets on here. But before we get to that, and the reason for me doing this, is let's just go back to how we're going to set up our ToneX and the two different ways you can do it. So in the send return, what I've done is I've got my send return set to normal, a level of 100 on the send and the return. In the ToneX itself, I've got my output level for the unit on -6 dB, and then I level my patch, okay, through the send return. So I've covered that in other videos. We're going into that in the deep dive, separate videos to this one. Now, one of the things I'm covering in the deep dive is EQ. And what you're going to find is if you set up a ToneX, so you're going into the input of the ToneX pedal with your instrument from the send here, and then your return, just take the left mono return from the ToneX back into GT-1000. Now, everything after the amp, if you wanted to run the GT-1000 like a divide in itself and send your dry signal separately without any EQ or compressors or effects or anything, but just totally dry to the desk, so you had a dry signal, and run this as your wet, your effects, you just put them in the chain and take the dry level out here, so it's 100% wet. Okay, so now my dry signal would then be going separately to the desk from the second output of the ToneX. So I'd use the left output because it's dual mono, it's not left-right stereo. And then when that gets to the mixer at front of house, I'd pan that one to the right. For the channel on the left, I'd do exactly the same. I'd go into my ToneX from the send return here. is set the same way. Normal 100, 100. There's no adjustment there. But as I say, we're not going to be hearing ToneX when I strum, but imagine it was ToneX for a moment. What you've done is you've come out the send into the input again, exactly the same process as the other channel. You come out of the left mono of the ToneX back into the GT-1000. You send the right channel of the ToneX to the front of house desk. He pans that to the right, and you send this channel into the GT-1000 to 100% wet effects. However, you can save cables and give yourself a lot of flexibility and control if you run patches. Well, I'm going to give you an idea. It's a suggestion. Okay, so I've just given you the settings you need to set up what you need to set up to answer your question. But to go deeper, this divide here, imagine it's the two ToneXs. We've got a Vox, all mids and highs, and we've got a Deluxe, all lows and some highs. With this button here, I can blend the two amps and have them both coming up the middle. And here, when I've pressed the assign on this button here to make that happen, I've kept the levels of each side the same because I've leveled the amps, and then I've just used the blend knob here. So we've got a balance knob, and I've just gone, 100% on the Vox and brought the Deluxe in to give me the lows. We can come back to either of the amps selected by changing the channel of the divide. So over here in my GT-1000, I work using manual mode, which means when the screen looks like this, we're in patch mode, which I press buttons here, takes me to different patches. But back on the patch we were in, on the Vox, when I press this button, it takes me to manual mode, and these buttons on the bottom now do different things. So I've selected the button here that's going red to green, bottom right of the screen there, just here. That's my Vox. That's my Deluxe. Okay. This is the two of them blended. I could blend that any way I want. This one is with them panned up the middle, but because when they go to the mixer from GT-1000 using the stereo outputs here, and at mixer I've got it panned left and right, so I'm only using two cables out of the GT-1000 from the sub-outs to do that. I've now got the Deluxe on the right if you're in headphones, and the Vox on the left. With this button next to that, when I press this button, it automatically sends me to whichever channel I've got selected with the button beneath it. So, when I come up the right side, I've got the Deluxe. And when I come up the left side, I get the Vox. When I come back up the middle, I've got my patch set that my volume drops by 3 dB. So I can record two parts in at the volume I want, and then when I bring my other part into mix, it's lower. When I want to go back up in volume to normal volume, I press that button there, and it takes me back to normal volume. This is a utility patch. This isn't an everyday patch. This is one that I use for specific jobs, okay? So that's quite good. We've got one way of blending, another way of blending, just by using the GT-1000 and not going separately and using more cables. Now here, what I've done is I've used 2 EQ blocks per side. The reason for doing that is when I was dialing in back in the day GT-1000 amps, I found that when I put Voxes with Fender amps, the high frequencies I needed to take out and the mid frequencies were slightly different. So for example, I find the same on the GT-1000 and in the ToneX, that when I use Fender amps, commonly, I'm taking out a bit of 250, I'm taking out a bit of 500. I'm doing my low cut to 125. Then in the next one, we're taking out a bit of 250 and a bit of 4K. Whereas in contrast, on this side where the Vox is, I'm still taking out the 250, but the mid frequency isn't 500, it's 630. On the same Q, the same amount out, just a different frequency. I might look at my low cut there actually. Let's I'm going to keep it well out of the way of the drums and the bass. So 125 the same, but the high frequencies, if I remember right, yeah, 315 is where the harsh frequencies are. So I'm still taking out the 4K the same way, but in the Fender style amp, I'm taking out 250 as being a bit of harshness, and on the Vox, I'm taking out 315. So it can be strategic if you're going to a venue and you're not 100% sure you can trust the engineer to get the right frequencies for you. You can manage all of that in your GT-1000. Now I've got the output EQ completely flat. Okay, so now after there, let me just select that. We've got a little chorus. So on the Vox, on the Deluxe, on them both up the middle, on them both left, right, okay, so we can isolate them, we can do them blended. We've got our stereo effects. If we use stereo effects after this stereo mix here that's going on in this divide, we'll retain the stereo. Now with the divide itself, every time I'm making those changes, it's very simple. Just go to the assigns, and I'm going to be doing deep dives in the deep dive videos where I go into depth on that. But basically, you're set the channel to single, and when you want to change between A and B, you're set to single here, and the assign you make is you change channel A to B for that divider. This divider is whatever number it is, number 2. When I want to blend them, I put this and set it so the assign, when I press the button, goes to dual. All right, and that's the same if I want to go dual and have them come left and right. The change happens at the mixer down here, where in the mixer there's a few different things happening when I do these assigns. So the first one, where we come up the middle with the 2 together, I leave the levels on 100 here, but the blend, I'll do that to taste. Just remember, the higher the blend when they're both together is going to be louder. So you'll need to turn the overall volume down. So it might be that you get your blend not by balancing them one under the other, but by actually leveling them so they're the same, and you'll use these levels in your assign. We'll cover that in deeper videos. I just want to plant the ideas with you. So that's what happens in this assign, is I leave those levels there, and I drop this, so I'm going 50% on the Deluxe and 100% on the Vox. On this side, when we hit to go left and right, this channel here splits. So here we're set to stereo. When we come up the middle, remember it's assigned here to put both on. So here it's set to stereo, and in this one we're set to left, right. So now I've got the signal coming up left and right. That's the Deluxe up the right and the Vox up the left. Here the balance is on 100. Make sure if you assign it to change the balance on one of the assigns that you make sure the other assign brings you back to where you want to be. Otherwise it will be on whatever this one was left on. Does that make sense? So, but we'll cover that in in deeper videos. So I think I can probably end that about there. What I just want to show you quickly is I've got my mono delays here. I've got different tempos in there. I've got other divides down here that I can use for other things. We've got stereo delays. Okay, I have not set that up for anything. I've not even looked at the BPMs on it. Now, what I have done here, so I get my wet dry, is I've put my reverb, because I want to put some funkiness onto that reverb, into a divide here. So my totally dry, unaffected signal, let's turn that delay off, is that's my direct signal. It's actually going into an end of chain compressor here, where I'm just using a stereo comp, a sustain on 35, attack 100, which is actually the slowest. So this is actually quite a soft compressor. The level on 60, 1.6 to 1 the ratio, none of the dry mix coming through. We're just using the compressor. It doesn't really affect our tone. What it does do is help bind things together when we start putting our effects and stereo and things like this. So let's put on some reverbs where I've got an external foot switch, FS7, where in this channel, you just do what you would do if you were running this unit as a wet unit and you were sending your dry signal from the other channel of the ToneX. In this channel, I've got none of the dry mix coming through. So the divide just goes to dual, and at the end, you just stay in stereo. Okay? Now, a neat little trick with the stereo down here, we can make that feel wider if we want. So let's pull that out to about 50. That's on the amps. The amps have just got slightly wider. Let's bring that in. Now we're slightly tighter. And there my guitar signal, even in stereo, cutting through lovely. Let's bring that back up the middle. Let's blend them. Stick a bit of compressor on at the front. Just put a bit of ring modulation on the reverb there. Okay, so I'm going to end that there, try and keep this one a bit shorter. Hopefully that planted the seeds with you. You can run the whole thing through GT-1000, and actually if you use the blocks to get a better tone, you can actually give yourself a little bit of mastering here. Think of this as being your amps, and all your effects that you want running into the amp, you place them before the amps. What I find also with a Vox is you might find if you're putting a tube screamer in there, the Vox needs the tube screamer set up slightly differently than it does on a Deluxe, let's say. So you can use two different tube screamers, just put them at the front of the chain of the divide. So let's go, we've got one in here, we've got another one there. Now this patch is set up that one will come on, I can turn them on individually because I've got them set up to stack into a clean boost and a dirty boost clone. But I'm just giving you the idea. If you were finding that how you liked your tube screamer or clone dialed in with your Deluxe, but you didn't like it with your Vox, just separate the box, put them in, and you've got your separate chains there. You can still keep your compressor at the front of the chain here. Are you with me? So hopefully I've waffled enough there. You understand what you need to do. And if you found it useful, let me know. And if you want me to expand on any ideas there, just let me know. As I say, I'll get back into the deep dive using the ToneX. And I can't wait to get to them, I tell you. Catch you later. Bye.